Hey! Here's a short video explaining the updated version of the plate diagram I made. I called it my individual plate because all of us are individuals. We have different needs, we have different goals. Why would you like to follow a diet that was created for someone else? There is simply no point in doing it. Now I would like to explain you how to adjust a diet according to your needs. Okay, in my opinion, the basis of every diet, of every plate, of every meal should be vegetables and some fruits. The reason why I put some fruits and not lots of fruits is just there are people who eat too many fruits. By too many, I mean something like 30 bananas a day or even 10. It's just too much. Fruits are healthy, but eat them in moderation. Now, to your goals. If your goal is to lose weight, then you should eat lots of vegetables. Actually, you might even need to increase the portion size for fibrous vegetables, something like spinach, for example, or broccoli, because fiber keeps you full. And if you're full for longer, then you aren't that hungry. And it's really simple. If you aren't hungry, then the chance is higher that you will stick to your diet and stay in calorie deficit and lose weight. It's that simple. In contrast, if your goal is gaining weight, building muscle, and you are in calorie surplus and need to eat a lot of food, then you might think about decreasing the portion size. The reason is because vegetables have so much fiber and keeps you so full, then there is a risk that you won't be able to meet your energy targets. You will just be too full to eat more food and won't just get enough calories in and won't be able to support your muscle building goals. In this case, it makes more sense to eat food that is higher in calories, more calorie-rich food, something like nuts and seeds, for example. Okay, now let's transition to protein. Protein is very important because there are essential amino acids and we can't make them in our bodies, which means we have to take them up with our food in form of protein. Amino acids are building blocks for proteins. And some people might consider to increase the protein serving, basically eat even more than I put here in this diagram. And this particularly applies for people who are nutrition training, for elderly individuals, or for vegans. Here are more detail on this topic. In general, activity level matters. Active individuals have higher protein needs than sedentary individuals. Then exercise type is important. Strength training requires more protein, or people who want to build more muscle need more protein than people who do endurance training. Then training status matters. In general, newbies, so people who are new to resistance training, need more protein than people who are already experienced. Another thing that matters is the age. In general, elderly individuals need more protein. However, the literature, like scientific literature, isn't 100% sure about it, if it's about age or inactivity. It can also be that in general, when people get older, they become less active and they are at a higher risk to lose muscle. For this reason, they need more protein. So basically, elderly individuals who are active might need less protein. Another thing is dietary protein source. People who follow plant protein diets, so vegans or maybe vegetarians who eat less dairy and more plant-based protein. For them, the protein intake should be higher. I explained it in my blog post with the name The Complete Incomplete Protein Story, where I explained that plant protein is lower in essential amino acids, which in general isn't a problem. It just means you need to eat more protein to get enough essential amino acids. So there's no problem about it. And I put here also hungry people. The reason for it is because some research suggests that protein is satiating. On the other hand, some people suggest that some papers suggest that fiber is more satiating than protein. So basically, both of them, protein and fiber, keeps you full for longer. So if you're hungry or if you're dieting, it just makes sense to eat more protein. By more protein, I mean 2 grams per kilogram, which definitely applies for people who follow on a plant-based diet, for newbie strength trainees and elderly individuals. For all the others, it should be definitely more than the recommended daily allowance of 0.8 gram per kilogram or 0.36 gram per pound of body weight. The reason for it is that the recommended daily allowance is the protein intake at which the risk of becoming protein deficient is very low. It is not the optimal intake, and that's a mistake many people make because they think RDA is, the amount of protein one should eat, but no, that's the minimum. So you should eat more than the RDA states. Okay, back to the diagram. Now I would like to focus on starches and fats. Starches are carbohydrates. They have just a slightly different chemical structure than simple carbohydrates you can find in fruits. And, the intake of starches or of carbohydrates varies depending on the type of sports you do. For example, endurance athletes need more than strength athletes. It's something that many people misunderstand. They think if you lift lots of weights and you do strength training, you need lots of carbohydrates. But it's actually not true, because during strength training, your glycogen stores, so basically the stores where carbohydrates are stored in your muscles, they don't get so depleted during training. And for endurance athletes, higher carbohydrate intake makes definitely more sense than for strength athletes. Another thing that matters is your body composition. People who are overweight or obese should decrease the starch portion or the carbohydrate portion, because in general they tolerate carbohydrates not as well as people who are lean. Actually, I created here a diagram where I explain everything in detail. There is something like an equilibrium between carbohydrate and fat intake. The purple line here are carbohydrates and the brown line here are fats, like this coconut here. People who are active, who are endurance athletes, and who are lean, in general, they can tolerate more carbohydrates, or they even need more carbohydrates in the case of endurance athletes. And by endurance athletes, I mean people who maybe work for a certain endurance type of goal. So maybe they are competitive athletes or want to take part in a marathon or half marathon. I don't mean the people who want to lose weight and go for a run once or twice a week. And basically, if your carbohydrate intake is high, your fat intake should be lower, just because you need to create a balance and adjust your energy intake. And on the other hand, if your fat intake is higher, then your carbohydrate intake should be lower, like in the case of overweight individuals or obese individuals, maybe strength athletes or sedentary individuals. Most of the time, there aren't any extremes, like your carbohydrate intake is super high and your fat intake is super low, or your fat intake is super high and carbohydrate intake is super low. This is actually the case for keto diet. Keto diet has its advantages, but the problem with it is that many people are not really ready to follow a well-planned keto diet because of the lifestyle, because of it's more difficult, because they like eating out. But it's a topic I don't want to speak about now because there's just too much information. Okay, and back to the diagram. In general, even if your fat intake is lower, it shouldn't go below 15%. Actually 15, maybe even 20%, just because fats are really important. They're important for the uptake of fat-soluble vitamins, they're important for hormone production, and actually even for endurance athletes. I think there's some research that suggests that increasing fat intake improves their performance, so they shouldn't be too low in fat, even though they need more carbohydrates for their performance than all the other individuals do. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. I would love to hear your feedback about it, about the diagram, about the video, any questions you have. Just let me know. And thanks a lot for listening.